Welcome to another fascinating interview. Today, I am so excited to learn about a new form of care that I really don't know a lot about. And so I reached out to two experts to have them come and talk with us. We are going to be learning about something called German New Medicine, also referred to as Germanic New Medicine. And today we are talking with Dr. Sarica Cernohaus, who is a licensed acupuncturist and uses this modality in her practice. And we are also talking with Andi Locke Mears, who is a traditional naturopath, and she teaches about this. This episode is sponsored by The Kitchen Table, your ultimate destination for holistic nutrition and wellness information and more. I remember when my kids were young and the seasons went by so fast. I'd find myself staring down at the season ahead, realizing that my get in shape plans somehow just didn't happen. If you can relate to this, I have a solution for you. I've been running my 21-day nutrition reset for the last 10 years. This no diet dogma program is a common sense approach to reclaiming foundationally healthy habits, and you'll be amazed at how much you can shift in 21 days. I designed the curriculum based on my training as a nutrition educator and my passion for healthy eating as the ingredient guru. And now I'm offering it as part of the Kitchen Table. Inside the Kitchen Table, you'll have access to a wide range of programs, not only the 21-day nutrition reset, but also a preparedness pantry masterclass, a growing content library of ebooks, and so much more. Learn more at miraskitchentable.com. Ladies, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you, Mira. Thank you so much. It's an honor to be here.
And so I'm really excited to learn from you. And I would love it if we could start by explaining what is German or Germanic New Medicine?
That is a fabulous question. And it's also called Germanische Heilkunde. That's the actual name of it in German. But Germanic New Medicine is also very good. And it is an entirely new biological science. Now, many people think of it as a modality. It is not. However, it is a new natural science. And someday, a few hundred years, it will be taught in med school because it is actually true and it is what's happening in your body.
Wow.
Yeah.
And so how was it started? Like, how long has this been around?
It's been known about it for about 40 years. It was discovered by a physician, and he was a German physician, traditionally trained, nothing different about him, who had a very shocking experience. He had a phone call one day that his teenage son had been accidentally shot while on vacation. And you can imagine what that feels like. His wife was also a physician. They rushed to their son's side. And after multiple operations, and 4 months later, his son died in his arms.
Oh.
A short time after that, he was diagnosed with testicular cancer. And he's like, wait a minute, I've always been so healthy. And now I had this huge shock in my life. And now I have cancer. There's got to be a correlation. He is not a mind, body, spirit guy. He's not going to that. He's going to look at that new invention. This is the early 80s now. He got through surgery and everything, and he was fine. He took that new invention called a CT scan, and he took CT scans of all of his patients at the University of Munich in their cancer clinic. He looked at CT scans, and he realized that everyone had a targeted ring formation in different areas in their brain. He had one as well. So the plot thickens. He started to talk with his patients and see what's gone on in your life. And he got stories from every single one of them. They'd all had some sort of shock prior to their diagnosis. And in talking with the other men who had testicular cancer, they had all had an extreme loss, mostly the loss of a child. So again, he's starting to correlate this. Everyone who had lung cancer had some sort of death fright conflict prior to their diagnosis. Every woman with ductal breast had some sort of separation from a loved one prior to their diagnosis. and
Wow.
so on and so forth. So he's correlating all of this together, and he's realizing that everyone that has the circle in the same place in the brain had all experienced the same type of what he called a biological conflict shock, and they all had the same diagnosis. Now, there was no exception to this. It was 100% accurate.
Wow.
And if you
That's an anomaly right there.
Yes, and if you know anything about healthcare, there's nothing that's 100%. Nothing.
Sure.
So that tells us right away that this is in an entirely different category. We're looking at being part of nature. In nature, things are 100% oftentimes. An oak tree is going to have the same shaped oak leaves as every other oak tree out there. And then, so you look in nature for this 100% rule, look for animals as well, and you see it. And so that's how you know it's accurate. It's always 100% accurate.
And sorry, Sarica, you were going to say something.
Yeah, I just wanted to say those circles that Dr. Homer located on the CAT scans, when I first saw images of these scans, Mira, I was shocked because I thought someone went in and did some type of editing to say, oh, okay, look in this kind of general area for something that's a little gray or funky. And in fact, the circles were that perfect. These focal points were that distinct. I just want to say that this wasn't like, oh, I see a little something here. It was that distinct.
And does it only show up on a CAT scan, or are there other ways that it shows up as well?
You'll see it in other places, but the most accurate is a CT scan without contrast. And I want to dovetail what Sarica just said, because that was a fabulous point. So it was in the late 80s. This was verified through 29 different areas, meetings with other physicians and university people. So in other words, it's been verified 29 times, and it was always 100% accurate. They would try to trick him. So they would give Dr. Homer CT scans. Here's a stack of CT scans, and he would have to go through and give this person's life history, and he could, and he was always accurate.
Wow.
Yeah. Oh, when you were 21, you had a bladder infection. Oh, I see that when you were 9 years old, you had XYZ. Oh, when you were 36, you had this going on. He could see that in a CT scan.
So that was because of where the circles were, or because of how they showed up in terms of level or whatever in the brain?
Both, yes, location. And we're looking at, these lesions, they're called Hummer focus. Hummer foci is the targeted ring formation. They're in the brainstem, they're in the midbrain, they're in the cerebellum, they're in the cerebral cortex, in the cerebral medulla, and they're in the diencephalon. So we see them in all the areas, and they each have a different meaning. So the chart behind me is the chart that maps out the entire brain.
Wow.
So we can tell by looking at a CT scan. Now, we don't normally read CT scans. We don't need to, but anyone could tell if they know how to read them, where the circle is, what it means, what the conflict shock was. What we do, those of us who use this with clients and we teach this, we look at a person's symptom. So we know that if you are right dominant and you have a right shoulder aching, we know you've had a self-devaluation conflict with your partner. It's been resolved. You're in the healing phase. Yes.
Okay. I was going to say, that brings me to my next question. It's one thing to know, to be able to see or to identify what's going on. What are the tools that you use to help someone resolve some of these things? And does that resolution make that ring in the brain go away?
Those are great questions. So chances are, many times when you have a symptom, it's already resolved. There's nothing else you have to do. Support your body, you'll get through it. So think of the common cold. It's a resolution. You've already resolved it. It's a sense of danger or an annoyance conflict.
Right.
See, I'm fed up with this. A sense of danger as well. So if you have a common cold, rejoice. Oh my gosh, I just had a big conflict shock and I resolved it. That's awesome. How did you do that? That's data for you. How did you do that? So this is really about self-empowerment, that you're able to understand when you have a conflict shock, because you'll be upset, you'll be focused on it, your hands and feet will be cold. And then you'll start to realize, okay, now I have symptoms and I'm in the healing phase, which means you resolved it. So how did you do that? If you had an argument with your spouse, then you probably went and talked it through until you both reached a place where, okay, we're okay now. And that's the turning point for your nervous system.
That's so fascinating. Oh my God. Like, this is so totally different than anything I've ever heard of or learned before. So, Sarica, I have to ask you, as a practitioner, as someone who works with clients, how do you find people respond to this when you bring it into the work that you do with them?
I think people are so appreciative, and it takes a moment. And I do have to read each person, because there is a readiness and an awareness and a willingness to allow for a different way of looking at why they're coming to see me for acupuncture or coming to see me for help with some type of food sensitivity issue. To be able to help them to reframe what it is that their body is presenting with. And just as Andi said, to show them the empowerment that they actually hold to get in front of stresses in their lives. Because that, to me, is one of the keystones to what we're talking about here. I think many of us have thought trauma is something that can be really an extreme experience, tremendous abuse and death and destruction. But each person is so unique in who they are, in what their rearing was, in their biological makeup, that what I'll say to patients is, I can have someone, you could take two people. You could have one person who has a shotgun blast go off next to their right ear, and it would cause a cascade of trauma and then a healing response relative to that. You could have another person who hunts regularly or it works with guns regularly, and that sound would not be traumatic to that person. There may be no fallout. So each person is going to be unique. The thing that's very important about this is beginning to tune into when you feel trauma happening, because trauma can be something as simple as Andi said. It's our protective mechanism. So it could be something as simple as having an argument with a spouse or a parent or your child, or having a kerfuffle with someone at the grocery store. All of these types of things can be relatively traumatic based upon that person. And so what I say to my patients is, okay, we're looking at this symptom presentation as it is. Let's think about the next time that you maybe notice that you are moving into something that we've designated, okay, yes, this was some kind of conflict that you had, let's say, with your spouse, and this is your resolution period of it. The next time that you feel that you're moving toward that kind of experience again, it's really important that you begin to work with that situation differently, even if it's just in your own mind, so that you do not have another trauma trigger that then causes a cascade of symptoms going forward. And so that's one way that I like to show people how they can truly change how their body feels going forward based upon how they have shown up and responded to different situations in their lives. And so I'll say to people, just take note of, let's say it was a stress around a fight with somebody. I want you to feel in your body, where are you feeling that stress? Dial into where that feeling is so that you can begin to get in front of that and begin to reframe your relationship to it. When we do have something that we know has hit us hard in a very dramatic way, It's so important that we begin to talk ourselves down in a positive way, remind ourselves that we are safe, because the bigger the response, the longer the duration that we hold that sympathetic fight or flight, the longer and bigger our symptomatic response is going to be. This is such an empowering way of really adulting ourselves so that we handle our situations in a healthier way.
Yes.
So it sounds like there's a lot of mindfulness training that goes along with this to help people connect into not only the mind-body connection there, but also their ability to reframe or reprocess in a way that does not create deep-seated physical trauma. Is that correct?
Yeah. So I want to bring in a differentiation here, which I think is really important for folks to understand. There's trauma, and then there's a biological conflict shock.
Okay.
They're often used interchangeably, and they are not. All right. So I want to point out that for a biological program to begin in your body, there are 3 criteria that have to be met.
Okay.
One is that it's distressing. Something happened that's distressing. Also, that you are isolative. So in that moment, you are not processing it with anyone else. You are all alone in that moment. And the third one is that it's unexpected. You're caught on the wrong foot.
Mm.
If 2 of those are met, that would be what we'd call stress or more psychological trauma. If all 3 are met, then a biological program is turned on. That lesion impacts instantly in your brain, turns on a program. You have cell growth, cell loss, or functional loss somewhere in your body. You don't know where.
Wow.
But what you know is you're upset. Oh my God, I can't believe this person said this to me. And I just got fired. I can't believe this. You know you're upset. So you know you're now conflict active. You're growing cells, losing functioning somewhere in your body. Once you get another job, now it's all resolved. And so now if you grew cells for those 2 months you were looking for a job, you're going to break them down. There's pain, swelling, and inflammation with that. If you had cell loss for 2 months, you will now replenish them. There's pain, swelling, and inflammation with that. It's what we call being sick. That is a return to normatonia or homeostasis.
Just to make sure that I'm understanding this correctly, the physiological expression of what's going on is specifically tied to certain types of trauma or stress. And so a particular response will engender a particular physiological response. Is that correct?
We don't use the word trauma. Okay. Trauma is psychological.
Okay.
What we have is a conflict shock, a biological conflict shock. Those are 2 different things.
But what I'm saying is, I guess, so the same biological shock always causes the same type of response, like the right shoulder that you were mentioning, or if someone always gets bronchitis, it's a particular type of response.
Type of biological conflict shock. It's a particular experience that they had. Yes.
Wow.
Yeah.
And so if someone, let's say there's someone who has a particular thing that's going on, as they learn to process it, and I'm assuming they do that with your help, or maybe by themselves if they manage to figure it out. But by knowing this modality, by knowing this natural biological science, I'm learning here. By understanding this biological science, you're able to help them reframe in a way so that these shocks don't continue to create a physical response
and become something chronic, because so many people have chronic issues, which means they keep getting re-triggered over and over again. So that's a lot of the work that we all do with folks, is that teaching them what's going on in their body and why it's still active. There's a track that's making them conflict active. So it keeps them on that hamster wheel, chronic issue over and over again. So we help people get off of that hamster wheel. There's a small amount of processing. It's really just information and putting things together. Not like there's a special technique to do this. It isn't. It's just awareness. and we bring that up. The answers are all inside every person. We just haven't known where to look or how to ask the questions, but now we know. So we can figure out, we're always looking for a biological solution. We always look for that biological solution. And then they can move forward with that. And then suddenly, oh, they don't have any more symptoms anymore.
And so is there some sort of a resource that people, because I'm sure it's lovely to get education, to work with a practitioner or to take classes and learn about it, but then you go out into the world and life continues and things happen. Are there resources that people can use to help them stay educated about what's going on and how this science works?
I'd love to say we have a ton of resources in English, but we don't. Unfortunately, they're in German, so we're slowly getting things translated. And soon we're hoping the book and chart set here will be published again, maybe this summer. So there's not a whole lot. There's working with someone is always your best bet. And we have a lot of teachers around, consultants as well. I work with a whole care team. That's on my website, andylockemears.com. So that gives you a lot of resources right there, different classes that I do, different programs that I have. And you'll find that a lot of us do that. Another resource is ghkglobal.org. That would be another resource. And that is an organization that I started with Dr. Melissa Sell to help bring those of us who work with clients and patients together and for education and networking and support. So there's more resources on that website as well.
That's amazing. Wow. A lot of information. Ladies, this has really been so fascinating. And I love learning about new tools that people can add to their resource kit to help them as they're going on whatever their health and wellness journey is. So I really appreciate your time and your knowledge in sharing all of this. Andi, I know you shared your website. Sarica, if someone wanted to connect with you, where would they find you?
naturallivingtoday.com.
That's great. Thank you both so much for being here. And I guess I'm going to end with just one little question. It's a big question, actually. There was one thing that someone could do or that you feel is a really important component of a health and wellness journey. What would you recommend they add to what they're doing?
I'm going to say learn Germanic New Medicine, Germanische Heilkunde. It is the most empowering thing on this planet. And it also teaches you and informs you how to use holistic modalities more effectively and more efficiently. And there are times when surgery is important, and this teaches you how and why to use surgery. So it empowers you so much more than anything else that I know of, because it is our biology. It's all about our actual biology.
That's amazing.
I agree. I agree. That self-awareness is so important, and people have disempowered for decades away from understanding themselves. And it's time for us to reclaim our self-understanding and to truly heal and to have the best life that is our birthright.
Amen.
That sounds absolutely wonderful. Ladies, thank you both so much for being here. I really appreciate your time and sharing your wisdom. For everyone who is watching this, I will put the links down below so that you can connect both with Andi Locke Mears and Dr. Sarica Cernohaus. And I want to remind you that in everything you do, make today a healthy day. Bye, folks.